What one move did you make in life as a young adult that you would repeat if you went back in time?
That I would repeat, going to Brazil, going to China, both of those, very important. It's important as a Christian, in general, to do things that make you uncomfortable, but to, yeah, put yourself in a position where you can only rely on God, you know? Like I grew up with five brothers and sisters. My parents were together. It was a pretty stable environment. It's easy to think, not necessarily that you don't need God, but to not pay close attention to, you know, the guidance of God. Yeah, something like that. When I went to Brazil, I became keenly aware of the presence and guidance of God, like the leading of the Holy Spirit. It's so weird for me to say. Sometimes I feel like I'm being disingenuous because it came to me later on. It didn't come to me in this way at the time. But ever since I talked to you about it, Thomas, it became abundantly clear. And now this is always how I frame that experience because it's true. I do definitely remember like crying on the plane to Brazil, thinking and knowing and feeling strongly within myself God's hand upon my life, my trip, my decision, my everything as I was headed to Brazil. But it's after the fact that I realized that I had shifted at that time to doing what I feel like God is impressing upon me, regardless of whether it seems to make sense or, whether it seems risky or anything like that. There was such a reward, you know, and there was such an enjoyment of God in that time. It's just important for every Christian to go through that. Like you can't just, call your brother for help, call your sister, or your mom. Like all you have is God. Like God is the one who has to help you,
E agora nós vamos comer
What
no
took you to Brazil?
English teaching and Portuguese learning, long story short. Pretty much Portuguese. I wanted to practice my Portuguese. But that's not what God had for me in Brazil. God had for me a journey through his word. Yeah. And then China, didn't make a lot of sense or whatever, but I got you out of that trip. So I met my husband when I was in China and a lot of spiritual growth, I would say, when I went to China. So very worth it. Very worth it. Yeah, to just take a risk, to put yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable, to where you have to lean on God and to where you experience God in a new way, to where because you don't have any of your usual comforts around, when something happens, it was nobody else but God. It was nobody helped you but God. What was the question again? I don't even remember.